Yesterday I was nominated for Young Entrepreneur of the Year at the Wales Business Awards, and thankfully we won.
Congrats, mate.
How many? Who are the other contenders?
Tom Jones.
Yeah, I think there was, I can't remember actually, I think about 5 or 6 different ones. And we're up for 2 other awards today as well. Got a lunchtime award ceremony with the Institute of Directors, so fingers crossed.
Banging, mate. And what does it mean to win that award?
Well, awards I find, right, so awards from reputable companies, and they carry PR and they have news journalists there, which was the case as well. It's basically all to raise awareness about the business, what we're doing for new customers, but mainly for investors.
Sweet, mate. Well, congrats.
Well done, mate. Thoroughly deserved.
Welcome back. Episode 4 of the Ground Up Pod. Thanks everyone for tuning in at home. In this episode, we'll be covering wrecks of the week. So that's failures we've had this week, little painful things that happen to us on a regular basis. 3D printed houses, Canadian tax changes, the new ChatGPT 4 release, answering audience questions, and a few more fun bits towards the end. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Make sure you drop us a comment, like, subscribe.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down. Let's get those deals. 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 Deals making money, baby.
And we will dive straight into wrecks of the week. This was Stu's recommendation because I think he's had a bit of a tough one. So Stu, do you want to start off?
I've had a mare, mate. My whole week, 3 whole days of my life, which I should have offset to one of my staff members to help, but I have had an absolute nightmare with O2. So they only come to my attention really, even though I pay Experian, I pay for their monthly credit report, never really check it, never needed to. I'm always sort of a 900 plus sort of credit, in and out, swinging around 900. So got quite good credit. Coming to remortgage just a buy to let property that we've got in Aldershot. And in March, I think it was early March, I got told that I had a default. I had a missed payment on my account from O2. I don't own an O2 mobile phone. I do in my business, but I don't personally. So I actually got an email from them in November saying that you've got an O2 account and there's a payment due. And I just looked at the email thinking it was fraud because, I haven't got a personal email. They got my personal email address, God knows what from. Expired. So I rang up O2, went around the houses. It turns out that in 2022, when I set up a Virgin internet account, the sales guy, I do now remember, was quite pushy on selling me this free SIM card. I was like, mate, I don't need it. I've got my own work phone, don't have 2 phones. Oh, you should take it. It's free unlimited text, whatever. So I was, mate, just send it if you need to. It come in the post. This was like 2 and a bit years ago. Went straight in a drawer, never used it, didn't know the mobile number. Turns out that Virgin have merged with O2, or O2 have bought all the SIM-only contracts. I get an email from my personal email saying you owe some money. It's only 70 quid as well, 72 quid. And in March I find out. So not only do I spend about 9-10 hours on hold trying to get hold of the right department, because I didn't make a payment, they closed the account. So there was no details of me really on this SIM card. So that was a ball ache. And it got to the 11th of March. I made the guy finally get through to, I think it was the O2 legacy payment system. I made the payment. I had proof of funds on my credit card, sent that to the mortgage company, thought that was it. Went to complete on Monday or Tuesday, we were meant to complete. And then the lender have come back and said, you need to clear this now. You're now in default. So it's taken me from a 999 effective credit rating down to like 680, down to poor. And they're not going to release the funds, which I've already spent the money, which should have come through on Tuesday, Wednesday this week. So I have literally spent the whole time on hold with these in my ears, trying to get on with work. And I'm calling them. I'm ringing them for an hour and 40 minutes to get through to speak to someone for less than a minute. They put you on hold or try and transfer you through to the payment legacy system. And the worst thing is O2 have got a new payment legacy system and an old payment legacy system. So you go through to the wrong department. There's no direct number. There's no email. And then they get cut off and you have to then sit on hold for another hour and a half. It's been an absolute nightmare. Anyway, I've now got the email, which amendment team at o2.com that you can't find anywhere. I can't log onto their O2Me account because there is no account number. I'm not set up. It just says your account is deactivated. It's just been a ball ache. I've fallen between 2 companies merging. The service has been atrocious. So that has been literally my whole week trying to sort out, and I'm still not sorted. I'm now in an emergency queue because I've said that it needs to be escalated because I'm trying to get a mortgage sorted, and I'm in a default position now because we've been ready to go for like the last 3 weeks. My solicitor has just been waiting for us to get to the point where our mortgage just naturally lapse. And they've come back on the day and said, this needs to be completely expunged from your account. So God knows what's going to happen with that, but that's been my my wreck of the week, really. It's ruined my whole, everything I had planned has just been focused. I had like 118 missed calls on Tuesday, and I had to leave them all because at some point I was getting through in the queue in the order. Anyway, rant over. O2, oh shit.
Yeah, that is that's fucking annoying. That.
Oh,
I was just going to say, whether I'm paranoid or not, but if we're buying a site or a property or a house, which is, pretty much every month in our business, I am always so paranoid that the estate agent is going to give my contact details to the council, SSE, electrical, water. So I hit the roof if any of my personal name is on anything, because it should never be that way for this exact reason. My dad, Stu, went through a really similar scenario. He was moving house, downsizing from a house that was worth probably 4 times the one he was buying, but he couldn't get a mortgage because he had a CCJ against his name where someone pretended to be him, walked into a Barclays bank, set up it wasn't a Barclays, walked into like the post office pretending to be him in like Essex. My dad's never been to it hasn't on this day. But anyway, long story short, got a CCJ against the name, couldn't get a mortgage even for 10 grand. And he was downsizing for something a quarter of the value of what he was living in, and had the exact same issue. So I'm super paranoid about CCJs, your own name being on anything. And it does happen because all the estate agent goes, oh yeah, Jack bought it. But little do they know is it's actually gone into one of the group businesses. And so scares me.
I've never been more stressed in my life this week. I've been for 4 runs this week just to detoxify my body from wanting to rip shit off the wall. That's how bad it's been trying to be on hold to these idiots.
Carnage, mate. My dad.
But there's no accountability. They're just too big. Go on, mate.
Yeah, no, they are, mate. My dad always warned me of this when we started first getting mortgages. I think because he ran a brokerage before, and he was saying that look, phone bills, anything in your name, just if we get even the slightest hit on our credit rating or you miss a payment on anything, then the mortgage company, when we refinance, may not give us the money. And I was always a bit like, yeah, I mean, surely we can negotiate that or whatever. And over time, it hit us a couple times where my credit rating sort of dipped and dived because of moving house and not opting into the electoral register. And the lender picked up on it straight away. And I was like, oh, fuck, this is real. And then you said this anecdote at the meeting this week. And I was like, oh, fuck, literally 40 quid you'll miss. And that could scupper your whole plan, all your plans.
The whole deal could fall apart over 70 quid. It's insane. And with proof of funds,
they got tens of millions of customers, haven't they? It's going to, and also, it's just not really important to them ultimately, is it? It's very frustrating. I had it with a water company years ago, like a decade ago, but it got resolved. I actually had it recently with Amex as well. We paid Amex and they didn't register the payment their end. We had proof of payment and stuff like that, but then on the credit file it said missed payment, and we proved that we did pay it, but it all resolved in the end. But you're right, the worst thing about it all is it takes ages. It just takes ages to get it all resolved and sorted. And anyway,
you just feel so undervalued as a customer, and
it's not really something you can get your team to do either, because if you're the account holder, they can't really. You still have to be there or be involved to give permission when someone answers the phone for somebody else to deal with it. So you still can't really go into meetings or go on calls. So you may as well just be on the phone yourself to do it.
When this come up on the Tuesday morning, I drove to Reading, and I didn't realise there was going to be like 4 black big security guards on the entrance, but I was going down to Virgin. There's a little headquarters down in Reading, and I was literally going to drive in, and I couldn't get through, but I didn't want the fight. I had other places to be, but I was literally going to go down there and not leave their reception until I was spoken to. But yeah,
all guns blazing. Dorian, any wrecks of the week, mate?
Just imagine Stu turning up to 4 big bodyguards with his little mug and I want to speak to O2.
Let me in.
Well, yesterday was quite positive, obviously because of the award, but there's always big problems going on. I think at the moment I've got similar issues to all of you guys. Deadlines on raising money, completions of acquisitions and refinances, and the amount of times deals die, both on refinances and acquisitions for me, and then come back to life, or they're all of a sudden at the brink of falling over at the last minute. We bought a couple of properties from auction. We've just been served notice on. One's actually deadline is today, and remortgage money was meant to come in yesterday. It isn't in yet. So the usual stuff, and obviously always cash flow. I'm still trying to bring in a decent size of funds, which is in the process.
Nice. What about you, Jack? Any shit stuff this week?
Similar to Dorian, really, just boring stuff.
Jet lag.
I mean, yeah. No, to be fair, the jet lag is all right because I was getting up super early in Peru. I was getting up sort of 4 or 5 a.m. every day, and they're 6 hours behind. So by the time I got here, I was sort of all right. Um, I mean, my big recs of the week are the same as Dorian, really. In our social business, it's always cash flow. We've just refinanced out a couple of assets. One of them, we had to chuck in 50K just to refi it. So we're now sort of recouping. Our housing association isn't the best at paying rent on time, which doesn't help. That I mean, I kind of get why, because they've just ported over from a new housing association. They've got to open up the portals, blah blah blah. But we're talking about 6-figure numbers every month that they might be a bit late, and that's difficult to stomach. So cash flow in that business, and then legals. I feel like since just the year of COVID, lawyers are just a different breed. Like
Yeah.
I used to have a very good working relationship with all of our solicitors and lawyers. Yeah, granted they had busy periods, but I feel like they're getting even worse than the customer service at O2. I've been working with the same lawyers for 12 years, and I know the founding partner that set up the firm, and if he saw the service that I was getting now, he's since retired. He would kick right off. He would never let it happen. So I feel like there's lack of care in that space, but that's one. And then the last one, which is a bit of fun, I've been roped into by the wife to do Tough Mudder tomorrow.
Ooh.
And if anyone knows me, my biggest nightmare is cardio. So not only am I doing Tough Mudder, she's booked me on for the 10-mile run with obstacles. So it's the biggest one you can do, which will be fun. So no training, and I'll be muscling through that tomorrow morning. And what's also fun is there's a property mountain biking get together, which is every few Sundays in the summer, and I'm going to that Sunday. So I've basically got to run 10 miles with obstacles on Saturday, and then also go on the mountain biking thing on Sunday. So my rec of the week is doing cardio for the first time since teen years, really.
I'm sure you'll smash a Jack. You're like a natural athlete. If you were Austrian, I'd call you Jack Schwarzenegger. Is he even Austrian?
He's Austrian, yeah. Yeah, best of luck, mate. You'll be a broken man Monday morning.
Yeah,
your knees hold up.
What about you, Rye?
Yeah, I've got a funky one for you. So I haven't had, honestly, really anything bad happen this week. Everything's going sort of all right. I did lose a few auctions, which is kind of annoying, but that's a part of the parcel of acquisitions. But I've got a mental story for you. All right, you ready? I'm getting glasses on for this because I can't even see myself properly. So I'll try and condense it. Last weekend, whilst I was in London, so I didn't know any of this till I got back, really. We had CSI, so crime scene investigation, in one of our buildings, in the service department building. And we were like, what the fuck? And guests were outside going, why CSI outside? And they're in the apartment 7, and they've got all their tickets all on the floor, literally like out of a movie, like all that shit, hazmat suits and all that stuff. Crime scene, blood all over the bed. And we're just like, what the fuck? And none of us saw this. The cleaner saw it and was like, how did they get in the building? No one contacted us. Bear in mind, our contact information is all over the building, so they could have easily called us. CSI didn't contact us. The police didn't contact us. Vicky, who runs the building, called the police and was like, what's going on here? And they were like, I'm afraid we can't really say anything at this time. We're like, how did you get in the building, though? Like, this is key coded. So how did you get in? So long story short, what happened is there was this guy staying in one of the apartments and said he was waiting for his wife and his kids to show up, and he was waiting outside of the apartments, acting all weird all night. And then nothing happened, but he didn't stay in his apartment that night. He stayed sleeping in the corridor. The next day, he booked another apartment for 2 people, and bit weird because it's meant to be his wife and kids showing up, but booked an apartment for 2 people, and a load of girls showed up. And there's a girl, I don't know if I should say her name. I'm not going to say her name, but let's call her Julie. Julie showed up, young girl, with this guy, at the apartment, and we know this because the neighbours who are AST tenants, so they stay there for longer durations. They heard all this going on and saw the girls come into the building, and then the next morning, there was a break-in around the side. Well, during the night, like early hours of the morning, there's a break-in around the side of the building to come and knock on those windows. And we thought a load of drunk people had broken in or something, but it wasn't. It was Julie, the girl's mates, trying to find her because she'd gone missing. And we were like, what? Like, we didn't know anything about this, but the tenants had like heard what was going on. And then in the morning, that's when so later that morning, that's when CSI were in there, and then Vicky went down, and the cleaner was there and was like, well, how the fuck's CSI in here? They fucked off straight away. And the cleaner just went into a crime scene where there's blood all over the bed. There's all these bits all over the room, like, you know, one in little yellow, literally out of a movie. And no contact from the police, no contact from CSI. Don't know how they got in. They don't know where the guy is. They don't know where the girl is. Her friends still think she's missing. And we've tried to contact the police, tried to offer help. We've got his email address, his contact details, all these things, and they won't play ball. Now, I know that sometimes with minors, if she is underage, the girl that's gone missing, then they have to be really careful with what they release. But fucking booky shit. I was just
Crazy,
like,
mate.
what the fuck?
So you don't actually know what you don't actually know what crime took place, but there was the guy checked in, invited girls over. One of the girls was like an underage girl. You think it's now CSI ended up in the building afterwards. Your cleaner went in. It's like a crime scene, blood everywhere, like investigation stickers and photographs like of evidence that would have been taken, but nobody knows exactly what's happened.
Yeah, no one knows, and it was weird. Like,
Strange. That is strange.
it was almost like I don't know how to, like, even on the CCTV just shows like CSI just walking in, but how do they get in? How do they know that you got a code to get in the building?
And they wouldn't be there without the police being involved. I'm guessing the police are involved, obviously. So
Yeah, they must
but
be.
they're not. But they're not speaking to you about it.
Yeah, didn't even try to contact us. I'm betting like our
So
numbers like
strange.
right there. Yeah, super
Wow.
weird, and we still don't know what's gone on. Hopefully, the girl's all right.
Are you allowed to clean the room now, or does anyone give
Yeah,
you the
right.
okay to?
We
like,
cleaned it
yeah.
straight away. We had other guests
Interesting.
coming in, so we just cleaned it straight away. We were like, we've cleaned a crime scene. That's why we called them, to be like, do you want us to leave this apartment? Should we do anything about it? Nothing, and they wouldn't give us any information. And we had guests coming in to stay, so we're like, well, cleaning the crime scene then. Yeah,
Have you got his
fucking weird,
credit
mate.
card details as well? Have you got his credit card details?
Have you got his passport?
I don't know exactly what we've got, but I'm guessing we've got all your standard shit that you get through booking.com.
Right, how do you find doing the part AST, part short-term stays? How is that working? Do you get a lot of like people moaning who are ASTs going, look, they're having parties again, or does it work okay? Is there enough sort of sound barriers, or people coming late at night and stuff? Or
Like, I could literally think maybe 2 or 3 times where there's been noise complaints, and then one of us just go down, tell them to shut up, or call them and tell them to be quiet. But it's in the booking details that you can't be loud after a certain point, and that seems to be fine. But yeah, it seems to be harmonious. Doesn't seem to be much of an issue, so works, mate. We're doing it on another building as well, and the council did ask that same question. They went, "Is this going to work?" And we were like, "Look, we've been doing it for a year now, so works fine." But anyway, that's me. Super weird story, something out of a movie. But anyway,
that wins record of the week, mate.
yeah, fucking strange, right? Strange stuff.
Well, keep us to be continued, right?
Yeah, I'll let you know what the verdict is, but I'm guessing the police aren't going to release any information on it. Otherwise, they would have done by now.
Yeah.
Super weird. Hopefully, the girl's all right. All right, so we're into part 2, ground up, roundup. Yeah, so we're starting with the first 3D construction printed social housing scheme unveiled in Colouth. Am I saying that right, guys? Colouth in Ireland, I think it is.
Ronan can comment.
Ronan, one of our good developer friends, sent this to everyone, and this is kind of crazy stuff. So it's the first 3D printed houses, the social houses. You can see there sort of how it works. They build this kind of frame. I've actually seen this before, because they invented this technology for building out in space, building on the moon and building on Mars. How could they do it without obviously the same kind of resources and accessibilities that we have on Earth? And that is, I'm pretty certain, where 3D printing buildings came from. And now we've had the first proper house done, and it looks like that. And there's one of the CGIs for what it's meant to look like in the end. Nothing else that fascinating to talk about yet is done in partnership with the local authorities and a few other companies. You can go look it up online. What we really want to know is what's the cost per square foot? What are the technical things around it? Planning permission, all kinds of stuff like that. And I couldn't see anything like that in the article. But do you guys have any insights on this?
I've got a few questions. So, I mean, obviously, it's a great technology if it can be set up pretty quickly. I mean, I assume that the head and the mechanical part can be removed at night, because if I had that around my area, that would go missing for parts, I reckon, the following day.
Especially mine.
Yeah, exactly. You'd weigh that in. And also, how high can you build it? I mean, obviously, you can only go up really about a meter, or I guess, cut a foot before you got to let the building set. So, it's a great idea. There's a better solution, which we heard about on Monday, right? Which I was going to mention that after we've sort of gone through these questions. And I wonder what guarantees you get. Like, the bank's quite happy with this. I mean, it looks like it's a double skin, single cavity from the photos I saw. But I wonder what guarantees you get. And if you can load, do you have to put like little formers in and windows and then like sort of cement over them and then pull the formers out after? So there's quite, it's a great technology, but does it actually speed you up? Is it going to take you, you're going to do an hour's worth of work and then have to leave it for a day to set and then carry on the following day?
I suppose the assumption, well, the thing to think about is less like at present, what can it do? I suppose it's more, this is clearly like a pilot project for at scale. Can we go and print a load of these houses?
Well,
Probably.
my when I look at it, like kind of what Stuart said, I look at it, obviously it looks cool, looks interesting. It'd definitely be worth getting more details. But ultimately, what are they doing? They are 3D printing, but basically it's cement they're using, isn't it? Double skin going up in stages as a house. They say they can build a house in a week doing that. Well, you can build a timber frame house, panelized system in a week as well, because it still doesn't stop the external facade finishes. Like if you look at that picture, that was render. They're not 3D printing render. Someone has to go there and render that. The roof's got to be put on. The windows have to go in. All internals have to be done. So ultimately, you're looking at the frame going up effectively in a week. But we build houses. The timber frame goes up in a week. It's everything else that takes really long. So if you look at that, timber's more sustainable than cement. So I would still go down the panelized timber frame system. And just as Stuart said, it's much more that the barriers they're going to have really is that you've got to go back and deal with insulation. How's the insulation? Are they going to go up in sections and then put the insulation in the cavity, or are they going to do, or is it going to be built bigger and then do internal wall insulation? You got these things to consider. But with timber frame, it's already done, pre-manufactured within the studs, brought in. Close boarded or not, and then you're up in a week. You can be watertight as long as your roof's ready, your windows ready, but you've already got the insurances, both construction insurance and buildings insurance. You've got the structure, you've got the warranties, which is obviously really important. The 12-year we use structure warranties. Valuers, when it comes to mortgage and securitization, there's no kind of reduced loan to value for timber frame versus what they will be for concrete systems or completely innovative systems. So that's going to be a big barrier. But yeah, ultimately though, these things are still interesting, but I can only ever see that really being on a small scale or non-residential. I can see that going out massively for more like commercial or temporary housing stuff, for sure.
I know the speed might be the same with the timber frame, but I wonder, even with the timber frame, you've got the off-site manufacturing part where there is going to be a labor cost to assembling these frames and then on site and then assembling them with the labor. I suppose the difference with the 3D printing is that there isn't a labor cost.
I bet you that machine will take over like a week or something to set up with full on labor. It won't set itself up.
You've also got the weather to contend with. In a factory, you're working in controlled environments. You can get things done at a certain time. That thing you can set up for a week, miss all the good weather, and then you could be off site waiting because it's cement based. I think we should do an actual topic on MMC because I'm super passionate about it. I love learning about these different products. And there's another one which we learned about on Monday, which is called System Domin, which is actually like a smart eco brick. It's made of two products, both environmentally friendly. One's called Perlite, which is, I think it comes from Turkey, but it's like a volcanic aggregate. And it's mixed with expanded clay, which is found everywhere. And they basically put it into a mold, they heat it and vibrate it. And it makes these bricks, which are less than 25 kgs each. You can lay them and they basically like stack on top of each other, almost like Lego bricks. They're one person can lift the brick at a time. So they're not, but then you can do it in all weather. There's no cavity. It's a fantastic product that stops any dew point or moisture coming through. Super rapid. It's earthquake and hurricane resistant. I mean, this product was quite interesting to learn from. We met the guy who's got the the pattern on it in like 157 countries. Super interesting. And there's another one which is a concrete-based insulated panel, which turns up with all your service channels in, that you can literally build a whole house in a few days with all your structural walls, and you're not against the English weather. So I'm definitely interested about it. I haven't done any new build stuff yet, but when we do our first new build site, we'll be definitely doing MMC.
I was going to say, looking at it, it seems like it's solving one problem, which is a relevant problem, which is the bricklaying part of construction, traditional construction. I mean, Tony Pidgley, RIP himself, he was massively concerned about the labour force that was coming into construction in the UK, and he actually built up a foundation to support apprenticeships and labour force coming into construction, because quite frankly, the kids leaving college these days don't go, I really fancy being a bricklayer. And working winter after winter, knocking up brickwork. The way I do think it is going is, modular, Stuart. I think that it would be great to do a bit more of a detailed topic on modular construction. Modular construction currently makes up 6% of the delivery of homes in the UK, so it's not even touching the sides. But they're anticipating it to grow 20% year on year, which is obviously something that we can't ignore. But I think, like Dorian, the way it should be going, and it is going, is timber. The amount of houses that I've seen, I actually sold a site to a friend of mine who's a developer, and he develops pretty much 100% out of timber. His wall panels, which are sealed panels, are 100% net carbon zero production, so they cost nothing from the earth to produce it, to get it to site, because it's using a lot of waste, renewable materials, etc. And he achieves passive house standards, and he can put up a house in 2 to 3 days. So I think that's the like Dorian said, I think that we should be moving away from, if the thermal performance is the same or better for timber, and it's quicker, easier, more sustainable, why are we still stuck on cement or even volcanic rock? To me, it makes sense to move on.
So for there's a couple of points in my opinion. So the reason why a lot of house building is timber, but there's still a lot of masonry as well. And the one reason why I found out that is the case is actually because of sales rates. So the houses on a large development site, may have a sales rate of one house a week, or one house every 2 weeks. Depends on where they're at, and they will gauge. If they've got a site of 300 houses, they will gauge for the private market how fast these need to build for the sales rate, and then the actual methodology is more determined by that sales rate. So keeping productivity going in a steady fashion. If they build too fast and the sales rate is too slow, they won't be able to sell, and that's actually worse off for them. So they're trying to time it that way as well. And then when the market really is demand, because they've already got predetermined house types, they can very easily flip from, especially for a house, masonry to timber, if they really need to ramp up phase 2 of the project much faster, or equally they can slow it down. But that's one reason why. But from a MMC, I'm a huge passionate believer in it as well. I did my dissertation in MMC, and I interviewed 30 different housing associations on it, and understood how the grant system works. What I think, from the bricklaying point of view, Jack, I've gone to visit one of the factories that we work with, Local, which is a spin-off from a timber frame factory from Green Square Accord, which is a housing association. They've got their own timber frame factory that can build like 3,000 homes a year. I had a tour around it. Really interesting. A relatively small labour force for what's needed because of the machine-led way of pumping out these panelised systems. But what we're using on a project now, this is how we're going to do it. It's a block of 21 flats, and we're going to go in, do the groundworks, and then we're going to use piling with precast concrete beams, basically. So that really speeds up that process. Then we're going to use span therm insulated preformed slab, effectively. Then we're going to put the closed panel timber frame system on, but that closed panel timber frame system has brick slips on. And that's done in the factory. And I watched them do the brick slip, and it comes, but the computer tells them, here's the slips, here's the pattern, just basically do it on. And you can actually make brick slips sustainable. You can do it with hempcrete, which is something that you've got timber frame houses and hempcrete brick slip, so it's completely sustainable and carbon, can be carbon positive with hempcrete. But then so that comes in, and you can also put the windows in as well through the panels. So when it all comes in, you're basically left with putting the roof on and then you're watertight. So that we're going to go much more down that route. We're going to try to prefab the groundworks as much as we can, and then and nail the panelized system, and that's how we're going to do it.
I'd add one last thing just before we move on from this one, because there's some valuable insights there on the different methods of construction. But with this 3D printed housing, one of the main things to, I suppose, praise Coluth or whatever the council is that did this pilot project in Ireland, is that at least there are new methods of construction being R&D'd and actually taken to the field and being tried in the UK, and it's not just America. At least we're getting it tried over here. But I'd caveat our skepticism of 3D printing with an analogy from when cars were first invented. And when the first cars came about, people almost laughed and went, "I've got a fucking horse, mate. Like, I've got this horse. We've been doing this a long time. We've used horses for ages. It just eats grass. I don't need to worry about the mechanics. It doesn't break down." And no one could see this at scale. And I think we're at that same inception point with 3D printing, because it could be that they could print these houses within a matter of hours if the technology progresses at any rate, and they could find more sustainable aggregates to mix in, like they are doing with the Mars project and things like that. So it's early stages, and I think it's at least good that the UK is and local councils are taking on board some of this innovation, and the planning systems allowed them to even give it a go. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not groundbreaking yet.
It's another good technology. I think there's over 400 different MMC types as well. I met a guy at an event once, so I think he's built a table and he sort of has everyone sort of feed in to find contact details and stuff. I think he said there's about 400 MMC companies, and if there's only 6% of the market that's being built in MMC, there's a huge race to the top of the market there. But it just makes you think why.
Not MMC. That's more modular. Like purely modular is at 6%. I think there's the adoption for MMC is actually higher than that, but actual modular is around about 6%, I believe.
I don't know if we've actually mentioned it for the listeners' benefit. MMC is modern methods of construction. If anyone's wondering what that abbreviation is.
And the terminology is actually quite broad for modern methods of construction. Some actual digitalized, not even the construction itself, but BIM, building information modeling, digitalized system is if you can model your building as detailed as possible to remove as many clashes as possible and pre-quantify materials and streamline procurement and workflow. That is actually a method of MMC technically, but we talk a lot more about the actual build material side of things. But anyway, it's either way, it's interesting, and it's definitely needed more of, because we do need to build faster. But the problem with building faster, sorry, I'm gonna just get the plug-in in here, is the planning system is too slow. So but we can build as fast as we want, but we're building already faster than our planning system gives us the legal consent. So we've already got an inverse relationship. So we're not really incentivized much more to build. We aren't to build much more faster than we're already building, because it actually causes a bigger problem, because then I'll have to lay off team members because we can't keep the workflow.
Yeah, bureaucracy getting in the way.
I completely agree with that, Dorian, and I'm glad you brought up BIM, because 3D surveys is something that we output, and I love it as a business model. I think a lot of the modern methods of construction are one of those that take a little bit more time to set up, but once it's set up, it's a lot more efficient, accurate, and effective. So touching on your sort of 3D modeling, is the issue that you were talking about, is if you have 2D drawings of sort of what you can see as an elevation and what you can see as a floor plan, they don't communicate with each other. But a 3D model, once it's made, it doesn't matter how many times you slice up that cake or cut it, vertically, horizontally, it's still true to the true picture. And realistically, all projects in the future are eventually going to be 3D modeled. We were actually speaking to an organization, and they're actually starting to use AI to draw BIM models.
Look, I agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're always going to do it better than us, aren't they? But anyway, we'll move on from this bit now. But that was fascinating deep dive. And anyone at home listening, go and find the article. Coluth. I'll just bring it up one more time if you want to find it. There it is. First 3D construction printed social housing scheme unveiled in Coluth. But the next topic that we'll dive into Stuart brought to the table. So, Stu, I'll leave you to intro it and then just let me know when, and I'll bring the video to the stage.
Yeah, no, cool. I mean, I was watching another podcast, and Justin Trudeau in Canada has basically gone out to his Canadian citizens and made a video about basically capital gains and about how he's going to increase the tax from 50% to 66%. They're really trying to weigh down on the fact that it's only sort of affecting 0.16% of his country, and for the highest, earners on earned income, once they've taken their earned income, and he compares a nurse with an investment banker, saying that one can earn 70 grand and one earns 800 grand. They still get taxed on their income equally. However, once you've taken your earned income and you've invested it personally into stock, shares, property, crypto, and if you earn more than 250 grand on that income, then they're going to deduct from half of the income as capital gains. They're going to increase that to 66%. What they don't touch on is that they're trying to play the long game, because at the moment, $250,000 is a lot of money, but in the next 10 years, that money will have halved in value. So they're trying to put it in at the highest level, trying to get the whole country on board to say it's a good policy. And yet in 5, 6, 7 years, that 250 grand will very quickly become 100 grand. And then if they start putting in lower tiers, because they say, well, the elites are now paying this, and now we want to increase that down to 100 grand, it's just another tax play, which I think is just disgusting. And, I don't want to go political on it, but Justin on the video in I think around 40 seconds in, says that these people have earned enough. I mean, who is he to say that the Canadian citizens have earned enough? And what is enough? To some person, enough is a completely different number to another.
On that enough bit, quick, Stu, imagine if, take Elon Musk. Imagine if he just earned enough from PayPal and they taxed him, and then he couldn't go and fund the startup for SpaceX and Tesla. It's such backwards capitalist thinking.
It's totally uncalled for. And exactly. And you will drive these people out. I mean, these people have earned money. An investment banker doesn't work necessarily any harder than a nurse. But why would you want to restrict growth and your economy by trying to drive these people out? I mean, there is tax structures in place, and I'm sure that they'll be putting a lot of their assets through corporate structures. But if you've taken money and you have got these big companies and you want to take some earned income that's been taxed already, to then put that into, these are high risk strategies as well, like putting money into stocks and shares. These things can go to zero. Crypto can go to zero. Property can obviously go flat against true inflation. For them to have no downside risk and then to charge you 66% on your own income, it's just another. It's just criminal, in my opinion. This is not against the elites versus people who don't earn the money.
Did I misunderstand? Is it 66% of the gain actually becomes taxable? Not the actual tax. It's the tax rate on the 66%. Yeah. But also what they did mention in it, and I actually know nothing about Canadian law, but this applies to every country really, is that what they failed to mention is because they use the analogy of an investment banker versus a nurse or something like that. But if you're an investment banker earning 800 grand a year and you're doing capital gains, you're probably going to be clued up on the tax system, or your advisors are, so much so that there's probably some form of rollover relief or some form of reinvestment relief that they have in Canada, like they do in America, for what you mentioned, like Elon Musk, etc. So, but the nurse typically, or anybody isn't going to have that same level of knowledge. So if they do make a capital gains and it breaches the $250,000, and it might be something, they're not going to have the same level of opportunities more than likely to roll over into key opportunities like an investment banker would, if that makes sense. So I think it's just more of a vote gathering policy, really, rather than an actual tax gain.
Definitely. But just before we just continue on it, I think we should, just for the viewers who may not have seen it, should we just play the clip quick?
Some people don't think that the richest few should pay more in taxes. Well, I don't agree with that. At a time when the richest are only getting richer, I think it's fair to ask those people to pay a little more. You may have heard of the capital gains tax, or what some people call the capital gains tax advantage. Now, if you don't know what that is, you probably don't get that advantage. It's basically where you've made enough money and amassed enough wealth in assets that you end up getting a tax break. Here's what I mean. Everybody pays taxes on 100% of their salary. If a nurse is making $70,000 a year, or an investment banker has a salary of $800,000 a year, when it comes to paying income taxes, they're both paying taxes on all of that income. Now, That nurse may be living a good life, but she's probably not earning enough to be buying and selling assets like properties. But that investment banker, who's making $800,000 a year, probably is. He's putting some of his money in assets, like buying and selling properties or shares in companies. This becomes like a second and sometimes bigger source of income for him. When that investment banker sells those assets, he only pays taxes on 50% of the profits he makes. Now, he's not paying 50% in taxes. It means that if he makes $1 million from selling properties or stocks, taxes only apply to $500,000 worth of it. So when all the math is done, that nurse is paying about 29% in taxes on her full $70,000 salary. But the investment banker, he's only paying taxes on half of the money he makes from selling assets. That's the capital gains tax advantage. And it's not really fair.
I'll just stop that there because there's a bit to talk about in there.
Yeah, and also it goes on to, you compare nurses and all these different types of job roles. You know, they've obviously put propaganda together to make it look like they're doing the right thing, but they're controlling it from the top and they're controlling it from the bottom. We have no say on.
Stu, you're carry on with that, but you're right. I don't know if any of you picked that up, but the whole message was he kept saying he for the investment banker and her for the nurse. I don't know if you picked up on that, but
And she lives a good life.
She lives a good life. He's buying properties, and I
It's
picked
so
up on
wrong.
that straight away. Yeah, so
The
carry
thing
on.
is,
Stu, sorry.
they control it from the top and they control it from the bottom. The bottom is CPI. Like in the States, they've removed coffee this week from the CPI because it's gone up too much. So they just, God knows what else they've removed in the last 2 years, but they hide all this stuff to pull it out, to manipulate the numbers, to keep inflating so they can print more money, which basically deflates the earnings you've earned anyway. So I just hate it. I hate the fact that they can control us from the bottom. They're starting from the top to cascade down, and they're just greedy at both ends. And the whole system is just so flawed. And I think that if you have to read between the lines to see what's going on here.
What do you think of? Obviously, I think we can all quickly agree, and I'm sure some viewers at home can agree. You increase taxes, then the rich might divest out of the country, and there's all kinds of other things that, whenever they increase taxes, it doesn't increase GDP. It just stagnates an economy, and we've seen that forever. But what they do say towards the end of that video is that it's going to raise, they predict, another 20 billion for the tax man, and they're going to put that into more homes for you, the people, and they're going to build more. And what does that mean? They're going to build more and take more. Yeah, and take more away from private developers and the private market, focusing on healthy economics. Instead, the government's just going to do it, and the 20 billion ain't going to cover it. They're just going to end up printing more to subsidize it. So what do we think of their reasoning for taking this money to build more houses, more infrastructure?
I just, Stuart touched on it really clearly for me earlier, and he said two things. One, everyone that has a bit of sense about him, this investment bank, will have a corporate structure. So he'll have a business that he manages all of his investment affairs through, and that offsets it being directly. We're talking about getting your post in your personal name. We're now talking about tax in your personal name. By getting a limited company structure, obviously they can move things around and change that, but you're kind of agnostic in terms of some degree location, but also yourself paying tax. And people are going to move out of Canada. That is the fact. So it's quite bold to punish the top 5%, because at the end of the day, people are going to move. A friend of mine who is an investment banker from London. He's recently set up his own hedge fund. It's cheaper for him to live in Dubai, have a third share in a private jet that he can fly to and from England once a week minimum, and than it is to be a broker in London, managing his fund and paying tax. That's actually cheaper for him, and he's bought a house in Dubai for that reason. And now, unfortunately, a lot of his income is being spent in that market in Dubai. And who's the loser? London or England. So I think from a political stance, it is very, PC. And I like that they've done a gender difference between the greedy and the innocent. But at the end of the day, they're going to be the real losers because money's going to be going somewhere else in the world. And let's hope that the other places don't follow.
I would agree with you. I think ultimately the 1% and the 0.1%, they're also gonna have a lot they're more flexibility to relocate or restructure than what a nurse would do. So or even Anybody that's in that, the losers are going to be the ones between that 250,000 and a million bracket, really, because ultimately that's going to still be hardworking middle class people that eventually save up all of their earnings, and they're going to be the ones that effectively, that's where the tax is really going to hit people. That all is always this stealth tax that they're not really going after the 1% or the 0.1% in the perceived 1%. They want to go after that still middle class. They've reinvested and earned money over the years and years and years, and sooner or later their estates will go of 200 over 250, and then they're paying more tax now, but they can't move because they still don't have enough money to restructure, have advisors around them, and go over to Dubai, but still in a legal way operate with the same level of connections, etc., that they have in the States. Just as that's going to be the losers, in my opinion. It's this marginal tax all the time. It's never really going to be the 1% or the 0.1% who are going to lose. They got too much resource. It's too easy in today's world. So yeah, but I do want to come on to a point. I don't know if now's a good time. Sorry, because we've touched on it, and it will get thought about on this, because this is what the message does. Is the man v women thing? But I do have a question on it.
Go
It's
on.
There's four of us on here. We're all men. We've been in the developers circles, various different clubs and around, and there is genuinely hardly any female. Females are genuinely a minority against male. I can see that, and but I can also see a rise of women in business as well, starting up, etc. But why do you think? What do you guys see? Do you see the trend of more women coming into business and slash or property? Do you think it
Yes.
will catch up? And why do you think there is such a disparity?
Yeah, I could be. I could be almost 100% on that, and I'll save my answer slightly for later when we show the new GPT thing. And I had a conversation with ChatGPT about the future of property and development. And in short, technology is going to make being a developer more and more commoditized. It'll be easier and easier, lower barrier to entry, and that will make it easier for anyone, all genders, races, ages, to become a developer. I suppose it's just access to capital that will be the distinguishing factor. As for there not being enough women in the I say, what is enough women in the property sector at the moment? I mean, I suppose there could be quite a few contributing factors, but I have no data to show on it, so I don't want to speculate too much. But maybe quite a few developers come from the construction industry, and the construction industry, I'd say, is fairly male dominant and focused. Would that be a fair comment to say? I might be wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, I worked on a building site, and there weren't any females on building site when I was working on it. But it is changing. I mean, that there
Yeah.
is, I see on Instagram there's female chippies, female decorators, and I'm loving it. I
Plumbers.
think it's super difficult because I help a guy called Brendan Quinn run events in London from time to time, and he gets a lot of accusations for not having enough females within his events, and he makes a really conscious effort of making sure that there's a good balance. And fundamentally, when you actually look at how people become part of the events, and what I mean by that is talkers, speakers, panelists, is they'll come to an event, you'll get chatting with them, you'll go, well, next month we're talking about modern methods of construction. You got a lot of experience with that. Do you want to speak on the panel? And what actually happens naturally is not very many females attend, which we can't go around the house and okay, come on, you lot, we're going to Brendan's tonight. We want to get some good diversity in the group. It's down to them to make the step. And I think that as an industry and as four guys that are doing this podcast, we'll probably give them more opportunity to be part of it than another bloke, because we're kind of fed up with getting the accusations to, So I think it is difficult. Someone said to me once that everything's a level playing field. Everything you got to go and get out there in life is open to everything. It is an open market there. Naturally, we're in an industry, like Ryan said, it does tend to conglomerate males a little bit more. But I think we're all for it, and I do believe that there's all part of building our team is I like employing someone that's better at certain things than me, and I think that having that sort of cross gender, having different genders in the business is essential. There's tasks that I really struggle with because I'm a a boy.
We're also in a in a market where blokes are a lot more passionate about property, and it's not actually a disparity between women not being included. I mean, I follow as many females on Instagram and people doing it and running their own sites and stuff, and I love it, and I'd love to be it to be more equal, but I would prefer potentially to employ and work with females than I would in males, especially in our
Agreed.
our pre-construction stuff. They're amazing. They're efficient. They do so much more than what blokes can do. I mean, I don't think it's a case of women not being excluded in the construction industry. I just think the passions are different. I think if you look to put 1,000 people into a room, you might have 4, 5, 6% of females who actually enjoy construction, and most women, and then you might have 90% of blokes who would enjoy it. So
take what you've just said, and on a hunch, because I'm guessing none of us have the data. Are girls more likely to be interior designers for property developers?
It's whatever their passion wants to be. I mean, we live in a world of they probably aren't that excited about bricks, mortar, and foundations.
Yeah.
If you just put 1,000 women into a room, they'd be like not interested.
To be fair, a lot of like the next generation, male or female, what I'm seeing in conversations anyway, because some of the schools I go to and stuff is construction is still not really on the agenda, regardless of who it is. It's I would, like when I was in school, I can still remember that those things. If you don't work hard, you'll end up in construction or something. But that's actually construction is now. Because of skills shortage, a hugely valuable industry to actually earn a fantastic salary on and income. It's phenomenal now what salaries are versus what some like really like decorated professions are. Like they're genuinely workers making more than doctors. And
For sure.
that they do not give that message in school. They really don't.
My daughter, 2.5, go to the toy shop, and she's more excited about the high vis jacket and the construction hat than she is the dolls. Absolutely amazing.
Are you sure that's not you there, Stu?
I promise you. I let her have the aisle and say, right. She brushes her teeth over 25 days. We get a little star chart, and then we take that to the shop and exchange it for a toy. And if she walks down the aisle, and I try and keep her in the controlled, £20 aisle, but ultimately she'll go and she'll pick up what she wants. And if she wants that, and she's done her teeth, then if she wants the high vis jacket, that's what she'll get. She's not. I'm not guiding her down the bloody doll aisle, mate. She can have whatever she wants, and I think that's what the school system should be about.
Interesting dialogue and good question, Dorian. And look, this is a good debate that I'm sure we could have a few more times. So look, if there's any females out there who are into construction,
come on,
yeah,
come on and tell us.
Exactly that. Yeah. Drop us comments if you're active in the space, not if you just want to be a developer, but any developers, females active in the space. It'd be great to get you on a shed your light on why you think there are less women in the property development industry. But for now, we should move on to the next topic. And this one is not just for property and developers, this is for business owners, period, and just people out there. So let's bring her up on the screen. So ChatGPT, I'm sure everyone who's listening has heard of ChatGPT by now, the chatbot by OpenAI. So GPT-4 has just released GPT 4.0 Turbo, which is a multimodal large language model that supports real-time conversations, Q&A, text generation, and more. Now, I've listened to a lot of Sam Altman's podcasts on this new launch just to fully understand what's going on here. And essentially, I'll read out some bullet points for what this means. So GPT-4, if anyone's used it, is already very, very comprehensive and coherent on how it can understand dialogue and speak through text form. But now with GPT-4 Turbo, it has an improved understanding and context for natural language conversations, which is saying something because GPT-4 was already very good at it. Multimodal capabilities with text and image inputs. So it can take from more inputs from the user. So rather than you have to prompt it specifically and try and iterate it and then bring in other parts of the dialogue, you can kind of give it a lot more info and it will give you coherent responses. Enhanced creativity and problem solving skills, higher accuracy and safety features. Now also text to speech or GPT audio conversations. So now you can speak with it with rapid response times. And I did this last night, and it is, all three of you need to fucking do this. So you get it on the phone, yeah? I'll get it up. And it looks kind of like this. So this is me talking to it. It listens and then it comprehends, and then within 300 milliseconds it responds like a human. You pick the voice and it's then talking to you, and you can just stick it down, you can tap it to interrupt it, and then just say, no, hang on a sec, mate, this is what I want you to say, or this is the question I'm asking, and it will go, oh, sorry, let me reword that, let me rethink on how I'm answering your question. And it is like having a conversation with a human being. I can't stress enough how much you need to try it.
It's going to have a translator on demand now, isn't it? So if ever I go now, that'll be able to translate now as well, won't it? If I'm in, if Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, whatever.
Yep.
Oh, what's this guy saying? Or girl, what are they saying?
It's a fascinating piece of tech. This is groundbreaking stuff, because the GPT before, with just being a text modality, means that the bandwidth constraint on your inputs and you having to think and then turn that into text, and then put that in and have a coherent dialogue back and forth takes a bit longer, and it was still phenomenal. Now it is just like you stick it on the side, you open up what's almost a phone call and just chat with it, and you can say sort of anything and it will understand what you're saying. So to give you an example, I had a conversation last night with it. My conversation was, what's going to happen with the property and development industry, with technology coming to disrupt the sector? What do you think the future is for property and development? We went back and forth, and I sort of was telling it off because it initially gave me a bit of a PC answer. I said, and I'll be here to the GPT was saying, and I'll be here to support developers and property people and give them more information. Hopefully I can do a good job and stuff. And I was like, no. Tell me genuinely, what do you think based on this and this and this coming to the sector, democratizing this technology and the barrier to entry? What's really going to happen to the development and construction industry? And the consensus it came up with was that because AI is going to make the procurement process much simpler, the investment appraisal much simpler, the design process much simpler, almost completely automated. And then if the other third-party bodies within the ecosystem, like we spoke about in the last podcast, can all come together and help streamline that process, then essentially what happens is we lower the barrier to entry for being a property developer, which is quite interesting because it goes against the tide of these huge PLCs at the moment who are trying to take market share and conglomerate large companies so that only the big companies can participate being developers. We spoke about this before with Lloyd's, who's the company, Barrett, and what's the other name that they've just merged? What are they called?
Redrow.
Barrett and Redrow. Yeah, they've just merged for 7 billion valuation or something like that, or turnover is that per year. But anyway, these big companies are sucking up market share, and you look at the tax policies in the UK. You look at where the industry is going as far as the government engagement with the sector. It looks like it's just going to suck towards the top. But then you've got this technology coming in, like any other industry, and democratizing the barrier to entry. But capital is still a constraint. But anyway, that it was very interesting dialogue.
The one of the biggest constraints of why it genuinely is more of a development is becoming, I'm seeing the trend personally. It's becoming even more a big player's game, and it's because of the planning system. You can't just go and build houses. You need planning permission. So that is set by local authorities in their local development plan. Because they're so far behind on their plan and they're under-resourced, they're only now really allocating big swaths of land. Those big swaths of land for new development can only be delivered by large companies with the means, financial backing to deliver them. There's a local authority in Wales that's just released a new local development plan. There is no site allocated there for less than 100 units. Therefore, SMEs in their plan for the local development plan for the next 7 years basically cannot deliver any new sites. They have to be focused purely on brownfield and creative plans and stuff like that. But that's okay. But you're never going to be really, or it's going to be really difficult to scale to anything. You can't scale unless you've got big sites that have 2 to 3 year, 4 year continuity. So I'm seeing the trend the other way. I'm seeing it go to more big developers delivering the biggest amounts because of the plan-led system. And until the councils adopt this type of technology to make the plan-led system faster and easier. That will then trickle down and allow more SMEs to come in my opinion.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I'm more talking about. I think the GPT was talking about, and actually, no, sorry, it did say that the planning system will end up incorporating, because there'll be no way that the public will allow the planning system to stay the way it is if the rest of the industry goes towards this autonomy, and then it will just highlight even more how much the planning system is the problem. And I think that's the healthy thing.
This there, right, is exactly why Darwin's theory of evolution is so important, and this is why humans basically get older and die, because the theory of evolution is you can't evolve unless like new, fresh ideas, blood come in. So I can see this technology coming in more so as we get a bit more. The only reason I think it's going to take longer is purely because of the generational impact. The next generation will drive this in. The people who hold on to their seats at the moment. I spoke to a politician very recently who has never even used ChatGPT, didn't know what it was. This was in the last couple of weeks, right? And they are actually the decision makers. So until you get the decision makers embraced into this technology, which typically comes with generational change, evolution, it can't. This is what we were saying about property, and the only reason why blockchain can't really evolve is because of the land registry and FCA requirements and all these policies that were set up years ago in that system has not caught up with the new system. Anyway, so enough of me ranting.
Yeah.
I think I completely agree. And one process I quite frequently do in any industry to sort of touch on the revolutionary world and where tech is going into an industry is just imagine that the planning system, all the people and the processes was completely demolished, abolished, and crashed down, and it was rebuilt today. How different would it be from what it would be rebuilt as to what it is? And it is probably the biggest discrepancy in any industry.
Massive.
If you're looking at, we've been talking about modern methods of construction, printing houses, and the traditional way of building houses. I think that we're well advanced against the council on making a good planning process. And it was funny, actually, our office manager said yesterday that apparently the UK government portal is one of the most advanced in the world. So I'm talking about logging in for taxing your car, HMRC tax returns. And I'm thinking to myself, fucking hell, maybe we are quite advanced as a country, but from a private perspective. So one thing that I think with my theory, the easiest way to overcome planning issues is actually for anything over one unit, make it private, make a private surveying company do the work, because they care about their bottom line. They'll charge more so that there's a profit involved, but they will be quick. They'll want repeat business. They'll care for their customer, and they'll do a successful job. And I think that's one quite easy, quick solution. Yeah, because a privately run business is going to be better than a publicly run business or a government run business. So I completely agree with Dorian. And I sometimes think about that in different industries. If you were to completely remove it and get rid of everything that has ever been established and you start from scratch, one, it would probably be quite quickly done. And two, what would it look like? And that's a good process to go through. So even if you're a product provider in a space, so let's say you're running a service-based business, for listeners out there, Stuart, lofts. If you were to abolish how lofts are done by your biggest competitor and think, how could I do this differently? It makes you think about things in a slightly different way and a bit more futuristic about where your business is going to be.
Well, let's do it quickly. If it was abolished and it was built again, how would you build it? And in my opinion, you'd make a flow chart from start
You'd
to finish.
ask ChatGPT.
Exactly, let them make the decision. But you'd make a full flow chart, wouldn't you? From every decision can be documented digitally. We're such an analog way of doing stuff. It'd be totally binary. Everyone would understand the rules. It would be built. It would be made a decision within minutes, effectively. If it was done properly and you actually had all the information you needed up front to put together, I mean, you wouldn't even need it all. I mean, everything can be digitalized. It's got to go that way because we're just going to be left behind for many, many years.
Yeah, and I think just circling back to the GPT point, that with AI and technology and robotics, remember, as well. We've not even touched on robotics yet, but robotics are going to completely transform the construction industry as well in the long term. But because these other processes around the planning system are going to become so much more streamlined and efficient, I think it's just going to highlight the issue of planning even more. The spotlight will be on it, and then there'll be a big political push for what's the government going to do? What are you going to do? Because clearly now it's you guys holding up the delivery of housing. Before they can masquerade it in these other issues and macroeconomic problems and things like that, but really it's the government getting in the way, and that's the main issue.
And also, you've got to remember that anything that goes digital, which is inevitable, but everything that goes digital will become the marginal cost of production. So as soon as it becomes this simple, everyone can do it. There will be no big, it'll sort out the housing crisis, which is great, but there will not be the profits in it, which is another big thing why capitalists won't want that to happen. So
And that's a big point there, Stuart, is that we are in a capitalistic society. So I'll give you a very quick example. Sorry, I won't take too long. But a story I was told recently is one of the biggest one of the biggest killers in Africa in children. What do you think it is?
malaria.
Diarrhea, right? Something that we can, with a tablet that costs like pennies, in the UK, we never even think about it because there's always medicine for it, right? But in Africa, what was the case is it was the biggest killer, and literally the medicines cost pennies. Africans could afford it, the government could afford it, but it was not being rolled out. And it's one of the reasons because they don't have infrastructure, but ultimately it's because there's no profit in it for pharmaceutical companies to push it out. So there's no really incentive for them to do it. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. And the way they managed to do it in the end, which is really interesting and a cool story. And the other reason why I'm saying it from a business point of view is they piggybacked off. What do you find in every area in the world? Like it's an American product, but what do you find everywhere in the world?
McDonald's?
No, nearly. It's a brand as big as that, but it's a drink. It's a drink.
Coca-Cola.
Oh, Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola, right? So you can't get diarrhea tablets in these villages, but you can get Coca-Cola. So it's literally just that well established. So what they did is they basically piggybacked on Coca-Cola's delivery system and etc. And the crates of Coca-Cola would include those tablets. But yes, it's still a problem. But the reason I said that is if there's no profit in industries, it won't drive investment ultimately. And it will also hold back policies for as long as possible.
I mean, just me thinking as a business owner and a problem solver. I know that we're talking about something that's happened and been and gone, but if I was a large pharmaceutical company, I would make a loss on that solution because it would save lives, get your branding out there, put you over the country, and then when someone wants some paracetamol, you're going to be the front of their mind, and they're going to buy your packet over someone else's because you saved lives.
Yeah, but you're unique there, Jack. Well, I wouldn't say you're unique. You're very admirable. But I literally had another story yesterday with one of our subcontractors who deals in asbestos. He was flown out to Kazakhstan from an American company, a big company. I won't name them, but they operate in the UK too, to deal with asbestos and train the Kazakhstan on employees on how to work with asbestos safely. And the American company was dragging it out so much because it was increasing the cost of delivery of a product, basically, that the subcontractor witnessed Kazakhstan locals working with asbestos in basically like we would be mixing cement in modern world where asbestos is banned in other countries for use. And what they said is they told that this is really unsafe, dangerous. And basically the corporate company people in there just said, hey man, just get on with it. Basically it was just, so it's a different world sometimes. I think there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the world, I would say, that a lot of us don't know about, but ultimately decisions can be made that not in best interest for the main public.
I just want to touch back on, or kick back on one point to do with making, like, if this technology comes in and completely moves the marginal cost of production down to not near zero. I think building property and acquiring property is still going to have a pretty tangible cost for a while, for a long time. I don't think it will stay as high inevitably. I think it will come down. But that doesn't necessarily mean there won't be money to be made from the capitalists, and we see that in most industries. Take a company, a startup company. It starts with a big seed round of capital, usually from venture capitalists or wealthy individuals. Sometimes industries are started by government money because they're just too big for any private institution to take on itself. That kind of roots back to how companies are formed in the first place. The idea of banding together multiple entities to put in larger infrastructure investments to then create a marketplace. And you see that with the company. And eventually what happens at IPOs and retail consumers start to fund the company and start to fund that marketplace. And it's the smaller pennies, but more of them. And that's what holds up the new market once it's kind of gone away from the gatekeepers and democratizes more and more. Look at cars and other things. And I think the same will happen with property. And there won't be enough margin, enough excitement in property in the future for big capitalists or governments. And it will be more retail consumers, your average Joes, who are building properties and exchanging them. So where will the capital flows go? And here's a prediction. I think they'll go to space, because there'll be a hell of a lot of infrastructure investment and a hell of a lot of money to be made in the space exploration, mining, mineral wealth that's out in our solar system, building on the moon. There's a new frontier. And I think once that's that bit more accessible, and we're going to see that over the next few years, if you just follow SpaceX or China and what they're doing with rocket engineering, I think we're going to see a move of capital flows to space. And then the housing market will probably be left behind as an old market now left to the retail consumers.
Do you know what I'm gonna? Do you know what I think? And sorry, I know I've talked a lot, but I've got one other point to say, which I thought about this. What my idea, my opinion of where I see what's going to happen with the house building sector, and I don't think anytime soon. I do think though within the following generation is that data is going to become more and more valuable. It always is, and the more streamlined and digitalized the systems, the more data to feed into that system becomes even more valuable. Hence why there's multi-billion-pound investments in data centers to fuel this. But for that to really get a return, they need data from the public. I actually think that housing in the future will be incredibly smart built housing. They will be digital, basically operated and run, but they will hold so much data about the individuals that live in them. That data is going to be where the big value is that these companies are going to sell on or work with, like advertising companies or other companies.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I believe. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but I do think in the next generation you will see pretty much nearly all houses be built smart, classed as smart technology. So voice operated, ultra high internet, digital. You can literally control a house from wherever you are. You can order things just from your house. You can connect to, but also then you will be fed advertising opportunities for things that you don't need. That's where big these you can see, like Persimmon Homes I think already have invested in their own internet service, and other companies have invested in their own kind of like smart utility service, and I think that's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, because that's where the real money is going to get made, the recurring money over time.
I was just going to say, right, that, last episode we talked about the built platform, so the American Express for paying mortgages or paying rent or whatever that may be, that sort of. And a point I made last week sort of comes up again, though, Dorian, is all well and good buying a can of beans once a week and getting the advertising through to that, but everyone in the UK's predominant expense is mortgages or rent. So the winner in that is actually, we're in a. I mean, I'd love to do a section on renting or buying, because there's very few countries where it's actually really everyone's excited to get onto the property ladder. A lot of people actually see it as a negative connotation and getting into that rat race space. But I think that even though no matter how smart you make your houses, at the end of the day, the predominant expense and cost is going to be the house itself. And we're in the game of building that product or being the landlord or whatever it may be. So I think there's a little bit more to it than just having digitalized platforms. Looking at the digital life living, I think that one of our biggest life changes that we've had as consumers is Amazon. I don't shop anymore, whether it be for anything really. I get it, subscribe and save all of my deodorant, shower wash, toothpaste, whatever it may be. And I think that Amazon have a better platform for habits than a house does, in my opinion. I think a house is a quite clunky item to be gathering information, Whereas Amazon see your spend habits, your use habits, it knows what you're doing. I also heard a rumor, I don't know how true it is, but that Amazon might actually eventually end up taking over Royal Mail because they've privately outperformed that service already. And it's one of those things we talk about monopolizing in different market areas. But if Amazon know that much about the users and the buyers today, and then move into Royal Mail and then potentially, energy and things like that, I think we're in an interesting space that we are going to be moving into. But I think that the private businesses outside of the house are going to scale quicker and overtake a smart house, so to speak.
We'll see. We'll see.
Go on, Stu.
I was going to say Jack clearly hasn't got a Costco near him then, because that's well worth a shop, mate. You have to go buy 6 of deodorants at a time, but it's definitely cheaper
agreed.
than. I love a Costco shop.
I'm a Costco member, and you know what the rule is? You buy your deodorant cheaper there, but everything else is more expensive. And I'm married to an American, and I haven't left Costco without spending
600
any
quid.
less than $1,000. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty mad,
Yeah.
but you have to just try and budget. We've got one literally 5 minutes away, and it's a game changer. But yeah, no, I just think on Dorian's point there about the data and about having the house literally run and consume all this data, I think it's even more important that Web3 technology has to happen at the same time. I bang on about it because we should own our own data. We should have it in a digital wallet that's kept, and we actually get to choose who gets our data. It's got such a value. Is that why should we use these services for free for them to extract all that information to capitalize on it? Where if we had our own digital wallets, our house would have our own IP address effectively. We would have full custody of that. And if we decide to sell that onto the data centers for them to use this, that, and the other, we should get rewarded for it as people. We are literally slaves to this data system. And I think this Web3 is actually us taking back control of our digital identity rather than having all these free services that we've just taken for granted. But the value of us being users of their network is where the value is. And we don't see a cut of that. And Web3, which I'm hoping that enough of these podcasts will go out and people, because not the government aren't going to teach us this, and the big institutions aren't going to teach us this because they've got all the control. So it's down to us as human beings to talk about these things and to start from lift it from the ground up.
Agreed,
really,
mate.
and make a move.
Ground up.
Ground up sound.
Ground up, baby.
Just going to take the reins a bit, guys, and move us on. The only thing I'd say on Dorian's point is there is Adam Newman, the founder of WeWorks, has started a new company called Flow, and that's his exact idea, is to build these apartment blocks with technology incorporated into every facet of the building to make your day, your life, your stimulus completely integrated with technology. So worth going to look at what he's doing with Flow, but we can touch on that in another episode. For now, should we move on to our audience questions? We've had some of our lovely audience members send us some questions through Instagram and comments, so we'll bring them up. Just before that, though, we've got this here, which I thought was a great fucking image. Stu, do you want to just give a one-liner on why you're wearing that top?
It's on the back. It's on the back. So we're off the UK Reef on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. I think Jack's doing a talk there. I'm part of a political movement trying to help with the planning system, so I'm doing a talk on Tuesday. But ultimately, I've got some t-shirts. So rather than going with the blue suit crew, where you turn up to these events and everyone's in a blue suit, no one has an idea who the hell you are, what you're doing, I thought I'd walk around like an advertising board effectively. And I've got a little bum bag with these pre-made that say, "We buy UK banks." And if anyone stops me and says, "What do you do?" I'll give them one of these, and it will show them the example sites we've done, some numbers, who we are, what we're looking for. And you never know who you're going to talk to. So all I need to find is one person who's got about 10 million quid who wants to back us. And there's no better way than doing it than walking around with we buy UK banks on our back. So give it a try. I might get laughed out of the room. I might walk away with 10 million quid. Who knows?
Exactly, mate. I mean, I think it's a good example for any business owners out there. Look, if you want to get noticed, wear it on your back and see what comes of it. It's certainly going to be
just need that QR code on there, Stu. Just a QR
I did
code.
think about it after. And to be honest, there is one typo. There is one typo that the missus found that she said, "Don't you order them until I've ordered 1,000 of them." So they're going out with a typo, but
1,000.
it is what it is.
And then just onto the next thing. Just saw this shared in the group chat from Cove Properties posted this on Instagram. Shout Cove, and just thought it was good as a reminder for everyone out there. House prices, £2,995 back in 1959 to buy a house. So, and the average house price today, I think, is £264,000 in the UK. So, nearly 100x. And that's inflation at full force over that period.
So we actually have a development probably about a mile away from this house. And we've just sold. We're completing on a house, a 2-bedroom house that we're selling. Well, it's exchanged. It's selling next week. I think it's selling for 400k for a 2-bed house.
That's more than 100x, isn't it? That's what,
Yeah.
like 120,
And
130.
I think that one in the picture is probably a 3-bed.
I mean, to put it in perspective, if we let this house out, it wouldn't let far off a month what this is being sold for.
And that's inflation. Everyone out there, that is what happens.
The developer had a 20% profit margin on that too.
No, a third back in the day, Dorian.
Yeah, of course.
The old third.
All right. Just thought that was a good anecdote for anyone out there. So, question came in from Kira. Thank you, Kira, for your question. Average cost for a full HMO fix-up. Let's go top to bottom, starting with Jack. Just a quick, we'll make these answers a little bit quicker. Go for it.
Cool. I'm a massive advocate. HMO portfolios should be stacked and analysed per bed because that is where your revenue generation is. We build HMOs in the home counties and we average 20k per bed plus abnormals. And we also build social housing HMOs in South London and we average 25k per bed plus abnormals, and that's plus VAT. And if it's a conversion, it's 5% VAT. And if it's a refurbishment of an existing unit, it is 20% VAT. Next.
Just do it.
I'm slightly higher. So we're about 30 grand a bed, but we do everything totally green. So we're doing solar panels, batteries, air source heat pumps, underfloor heating, just to bring down the long OPEX costs of the asset. So yeah, I'm an advocate of trying to build them as highly efficient insulated boxes as possible, where if the tenants like it warm and they want it on 26 degrees, it's not really costing me too much more because we're just using the environment and the batteries to pay for that. And also by using underfloor heating, it means that the room itself only has to get to 26 degrees, which means the water can get to 26. Where if you're using a radiator and it's the thermostat's on the other side of the room, the radiator's got to get to like 60 degrees to heat the room, so there's more energy being used. So yeah, I'm about 30 grand a room.
Dorian, what are you saying? I know you don't touch much on the HMOs these days, but you've done a few back in the day, didn't you?
Yeah, back in the day, but that was pre-inflation, so I wouldn't like to comment. But all I would say is just to reiterate really on Stuart's point. If I was to do one, and I haven't done one for us, I would look to, especially to hold these for longer. I would look to overinvest in certain things, to especially energy efficiency, because you've got this running cost. But yeah, other than that, in last one I did, which was on a usual, just normal house, you guys are gonna have much better data than I am, but there's no point me even trying to put a finger in the air. I haven't done one for probably 7 years now. So if you want new build data or conversion data for like apartments and houses, development houses, I'm your man. But you three are best for this one.
Then I'll just finish on that one and say for us, it's about 18.5 grand, 220 grand per bedroom, plus any major structural works if doing an extension, loft conversion, dormer. And it does also, caveat this for Kira listening, does depend on the condition of the property you are buying. So bear in mind that's an average performance, at least for my numbers there. Obviously, if the property's in really good condition and doesn't need as much work doing to it, all the walls and the plaster's good, you don't need to strip it back to brick, the wiring might be good, and you can tee off the existing, then you can still save some money per room. But yeah, 20 grand per room is, I think, a fair cost, and then add your abnormals beyond that. I've heard in the development space, I've heard 40s and 50 grands per rooms, and I think that's extortionate. I don't know what you guys think about that, but go on, Stu.
Just quickly, on my 30 grand a room, a bed is effectively a loft conversion, a full back to brick, and every single room has their own little kitchenettes in them, so a little sink, microwave, and fridge, with wall cupboards and stuff, and then a full on suite. So that's sort of the number I would go for when I'm buying a sort of 3-bed end of terrace or semi. Loft conversion, no extension, but back to brick. So yeah, that's it.
At the end of the day, you've got to look at every project individually. Use this as a rule of thumb to get numbers sort of nursed through to a point where you're viewing it, working the numbers through. We've had a HMO, a 4-story house, which we bought and spent 20 grand putting up one stud wall, an L2 fire system, and that was pretty much it. We've bought another one and we've spent 30k per bed on quite an extensive overhaul. So every project is different. And you've got to work it on its own merits. But I love, working out roughly on a bed is definitely a good place to start and think about that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just context is important. Every refurb's going to be slightly different. But hopefully that's helpful for you, Kira. Next question. This is from A4D_05. Thank you for your question. This could take us down a rabbit hole, so we'll answer this quickly. Do you sometimes feel like you are not doing enough and that you need to do more? I'll start this with a quick answer. Yes, always. I don't think it'll ever stop. And I think there's a perpetual infinite cycle that happens if you marry ambition with expectations and the will to progress. The reason being is if you've got ambitions, then you want to reach higher. And as you reach higher, your expectations move in line with your ambitions. And if you are, if you're good at what you do and you can deliver and you are moving forwards, then there's always new milestones and you fall back into that cycle and you're going to continuously want to keep outperforming your past self. That's all I'd say.
Couldn't agree more. I think I feel exactly the same. There's always more capacity. And as soon as you clear your table with one thing, you fill it immediately with something else. But you take slightly bigger risks. You take slightly more on. And there's times where you think, oh my God, I've overexpanded. I'm too busy. And obviously you've got family commitments and all the rest of it. But ultimately, it's there for you to have. Your future is your future. And while you're younger, when I say younger, I mean not retired. You've got this 10-year plan in front of you, and you want to get there. But I totally try and fight myself always to slow down, because it's always so important to take one step at a time and not grow too quick, which is where 90% of the businesses that you will read about will fail, because they've grown too fast too quickly. So it's always a balance. But yeah, emotionally, I always want to strive for more. Dorian?
Yeah, sure. And Stuart is right. Most businesses failed because they scale too quickly, and it's as Jack mentioned in the group the other day, like indigestion. But equally, though, I'm also a very ambitious person, so we are growing incredibly fast, and it's that's one. When you're a business owner, your biggest problem is yourself most of the time. But to answer the question succinctly, the answer is yes. I'm just going to give you two very quick points to maybe help. One rabbit hole this could potentially take us down, but we won't let it, is I think a big source of this nowadays is social media. Just remember that everything you see is probably just more positive side. There's a lot more negatives behind the scenes. But two, the things that could help you try to overcome that feeling or just measure it. One, know that if you are ambitious, you're always going to have that feeling. It probably is never going to go away. So if you start feeling that feeling, try to write down and get to the origin of like, why are you feeling that in that particular moment. Write down all the problems in your mind on a notebook in front of you, and sometimes that makes you feel better. And then the other thing is just remember a bit of stoicism really does help. Just remind yourself, like, this too shall pass. And I find stoicism and it does help when you're quite an ambitious person. You get this feeling to try to keep you grounded mentally. But yeah, that's my points.
Yep. Jack?
Very good, very good. I've got two things, one touching on Dorian's note that you just said there, and then also an analogy which will hopefully help. A4D05.
Is it a car one?
Believe it or not, it actually is.
You knew it.
So Dorian said that in the moment that you're feeling this way, write down all of your problems on a sheet. What I would then recommend do is cross out everything that is out of your control, because you cannot worry about them moving forwards. And then the car analogy, well predicted, Dorian, is basically everyone always feels like they potentially could be doing more. Like Dorian mentioned, that watching social media or looking at people on YouTube and what they're achieving. The only thing you can really worry about in current time is your productivity. So that's how efficiently you are using up your minutes, and not necessarily how you're using up your minutes. But my analogy is you need to have the end in mind, because that will set the pace for you to create that journey. And the analogy I will use is when you get in a car and you're driving somewhere and you set your sat nav, and your sat nav spits out how long that journey is going to take, and you're always trying to beat that time. If that time is an hour and a half, or if that time is 20 minutes, you're always trying to get there on that time or quicker. What you need to understand is life is a journey. And great, you can try and incrementally beat that by a minute or 2 minutes, but don't try and beat it by half, because it is physically impossible and you end up killing yourself and burning out. Mm-hmm. So once you understand your journey and your exit in mind, you can control your speed and tenacity about how you go about doing things. And that is the same for setting goals with yourself in life and business. And that's it.
Bit like my 3.5 hour drive to Nottingham last Friday. Trying to get to Jim's for dinner for 7:30. I think it was going to take 2 hours, and it was like 3 hours and 15 on a Friday afternoon, which was fun.
You still made it, mate.
Still made it an hour late for dinner.
Still
but
made it.
It's all good.
Nicely done. All right, next question. What is your dream project? In a quick answer, we'll go top down. Jack, go on.
High profit, high cash flow, low risk. A deal that we did a couple of years ago that we won 2 awards for last year was low planning risk, refurbishing 14 flats. We made 1.3 million quid within 18 months on one deal. I'm not a massive ego builder, and what I mean by that is schemes that you can put all over social media that look really sexy. All I care about is the numbers. If it looks sexy as well, great. But for me, it's all to do with the numbers and the risk to get those numbers and the time it takes to get those numbers. So for me, high profit, high cash flow, low risk.
Banging. I'll go next. And sorry, thank you, Princess Buttercup 122 for your question. I'm going to go domestic with this. I just one day, and I don't think I'll ever allow the time for it, but I'd just love to block out a year and just build my own house. Be there with the trust, still bring trades in, but I'd love to just design and then build my own house just with my own hands. I'm there on site every day working on the project. That would be a nice fulfilled feeling at the end of it. Stuart.
My dream project would be an iconic 50-floor, 1,000-unit scheme, one of the highest skyscrapers in the UK. We met a guy, Andrew McCourt, who's doing that in Birmingham. Totally inspired by him. And it's not the ego thing as much as it would be a beautiful building. And when I was 15, I always wanted to design skyscrapers in London. So I think it would be nice full circle for my career, but it also represents the knowledge, the confidence, the education, the whole infrastructure team to accomplish something like that. I think would be a great thing to try and do. That would be my dream project, really.
Lovely, mate. Dorian?
Great. Okay. Yeah. So my dream project is a project that I can forward sell. I can get my pre-con fees funded. I can have it cash flow throughout the course of the project, and it pays me on a monthly basis, and it helps society at the same time. It's sustainable. We deliver it on time, to budget, safely, and we get a great reputation for it with more repeat sites just like that. And we build 3,000 of those a year. Am I talking about Castle? I'm trying.
Sounds
I
easy.
think that's impossible.
Nice. All right, moving on to the next question. So it's the last question I think we got from 17 Hugal. When stacking deals, how do you budget for construction costs? Let's go Stuart first.
So when we do deals, it's all about starting slow and growing. And what we do is every single project we do, we analyze, we collect every piece of data from every invoice. We put it into one big spreadsheet, which our investors get full visibility from. And then we use that data moving forward. So we categorize each section. So each line item has got an invoice and a markup that the Skylofts will charge to manage the contract. Ultimately, we can see all our true costs, and we can take out our anomalies and out of our utilities, see what the true raw building costs are, and we divide that by the square foot of the site, and then we'll times that number by the potential site we're buying, and we'll use that, and it's close to perfect. No quantity surveyor will ever get these numbers right. It's all art and guesswork, but at least we're using true data from true costs, even down to parking costs and skips and waste and labor for all different bits, and then we can build pie charts and use that data moving forward to get even more accurate of the costs for future projects.
Nice. Jack, what about yourself, mate?
So, I mean, it's the $1 million question, and whatever anyone says, it will never be accurate because as we've discussed on the HMO front, every 2 deals are different. But for new build, we're in home counties. We average about 250 all in a square foot plus abnormals. So abnormals might be piling the site or access issues, or even taking down trees or whatever it may be. For conversions, we tend to actually focus on a unit cost rate. And that is about 100k all in plus abnormals for that. So if you've got a new build element to that building or whatever it may be, that's added on. But there are 2 main metrics that we use.
Yeah. Dorian?
Can I just actually also add that you have to make an assumption? We hired a QS that moved from a QS firm, and the only way that they cost building stuff out is relative tenders that they've recently put out. So unless you've got 6 different sites that you've already been tendering in the last week, which no one does, unless you're a QS firm, you're not going to be able to get accurate build costs. You've got to make assumptions, make sure they're conservative, make sure that you actually get some tenders back or lean back from builders before you exchange on the site to de-risk it for yourself.
Nice, mate. Dorian?
Yeah, all good points. Just we internally here we have a 4-point appraisal system. Everything starts with our land appraisal, which is built from data that we obviously already have. So we have an advantage there now. So like Jack as well, we know what our price, our build rate is for flats, for houses, for new build or for conversion. Always abnormals change things, but ultimately we know roughly what to expect. Our second point then is we'll then do an estimate, a detailed estimate, kind of like an elemental breakdown. And then as the deal progresses and more details come out of it, we will then do a cost plan. Those 3 stages all happen before we physically start on site. And then the last stage is a finalized budget, which we try to get happen before we start on site, but it doesn't always happen just because the way the normal on site before full tendering is finished. But that was the 4-step process we do. We track all of our data, and the more data you have, the easier it becomes. But you always have to take a view, like Jack says. The other thing we do then is we add a contingency on and just do some little bit of sensitivity checks. What happens if costs go up? What happens, if it takes longer? All that sort of stuff. And does it still work? If I was starting again and I didn't have any details, I will, warning. It is very, very, very risky, and you are likely to get it wrong your first project or 2, maybe 3. So don't do, in my opinion, something, if you're going by yourself, something too risky, too costly, and whatever your budget you think it is, literally increase it by your first project. Your contingency shouldn't be 5%. It should be something material. It should be literally 20%, something like that. Yeah, something major. And obviously try to get information from QSs and etc. in the first instance. But Stuart is right; they won't be accurate, and Jack's right. You will have to take a view. But it is scary, your first project. If you can partner with somebody who's experienced and done it before, great. If you can get a QS to help you to get a fixed price main contract for your first one, that's great. And then you can take that CSA, the contract sum analysis, and when you go out and do it by yourself, you can cross-reference basically. So yeah.
And if you do partner with someone, check their balance sheet and make sure they've done sites that are similar size. You don't want to be taking on a £2 million development site with someone who turns over 500 grand a year, because they're just going to be well underwater if a problem happens. So yeah, definitely do your DD, and hopefully if you know someone, you've got a good track record, that's quite a safe bet to go into business with a builder who you trust.
Yeah. I just caveat this as well with saying Alex Hearn, who we all know well, MD of Silence Hearn, so shout out, project management and surveying company. They said to us recently in a presentation they did, Alex was mentioning there was a study done of over 1,000 or 10,000 construction companies or construction projects or something, and it was crazy. It was like 96% of them were out on their time and budget. And that's including the big boys as well. So even the big boys with all these resources and QSs and analysts, and even they can't get it right. So you're always going to be working off of ballparks. We ourselves.
Sorry, just before you do it, no, there is a book actually. It's called How Big Things Get Done. It's a book by Professor Bent Flyberg and something. But anyway, it's How Big Things Get Done. Over 10,000 projects were analysed, and statistically, 8% of them only got finished on time and to budget, and they were like the key examples of how they did that versus the 92% that don't hit a program or budget. So read that book. It's very interesting on how the different strategies in it, how they do it. But yeah,
just on Alex quickly, just do a quick shout out to the TDC. It was their 2nd year anniversary on Monday, which us guys sort of all been members of. Great bunch of lads. They're running a real good club there, and we're all been members over the years since the start. So just a big shout out to them. Really, they've done really well, and long may it continue.
Yeah, congrats Shira and Tex on setting it up. Nicely done. We ourselves on costs similar to and Sean, similar to Stu really. I mean, we've done a load of HMO projects, and it's worth mentioning as well that if you are picking a strategy, if you try and stick to that strategy, then it will help when moving on to, if like for us, we're doing HMOs. So if we do HMO after HMO after HMO, then the data we're storing up becomes more and more useful on future projects. And that can also help with your expectations on refurb costs. That's basically what we do. But yeah, I mean, it might help as well if your question, 17 Hugal, who asked this, thank you for asking. If your question is more from the start, how do you do it? Then I'm sure the boys will agree. If you don't know anyone, make sure you get at least 3 builders to quote your scheme. And if you can, find a local developer pay them a day rate, drop them a bit of cash just to come for the day and have a look at your project, so they can give you an assumption on what they think the cost would be as well. Just get as much input as possible when you're starting out on your costs before you take on the site and commit to one builder. That should help you. And that is it for our questions. So thank you for anyone who's asked questions. Make sure you ask them in the comments on YouTube or send us them on Instagram as well, on our posts on Instagram, and we will try and answer them as best we can in future episodes. Guys, time is running. I know we had some more things to say. What are we saying? Want to jump on to the next thing?
Let's hear about Dorian's Unicorn, and then I think we can wrap up.
Yeah. All right, Dorian, give us the lowdown. What have you been up to this week, mate?
Sure. So I was fortunate to be part of cohort 19 of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, and which is a fantastic initiative by Goldman Sachs. It's a free initiative that they're doing, part of their kind of giving back, of where they have I think it's 2 or 3 cohorts a year of high growth businesses that are looking to scale. And they basically have created their own mini condensed MBA style program, practical business program, giving businesses support and like going through a syllabus of key topics that businesses need to understand if they want to grow their business from X turnover to 10x, 20x, all the way to float. So I was part of that cohort, and to get onto that cohort, you have to be turning over minimum 250,000, but have a real clear growth aspiration and target, and be trading for 3 years. Other than that, there was a range of businesses ranging from 250k all the way up to tens of millions. After the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business program, you join the alumni, which I'm a part of, and they have lots of different events which are fantastic. But more importantly, for the reason for what you just asked me for, is they also have a unicorn school, they call it, for businesses that are doing more than 10 million turnover. You have to be doing at least that to join it. It's an application process, so I was fortunate enough to get approved onto that too. And I spent the 2 days with them at Goldman Sachs head office in central London. They flew in some of their key management team from Goldman Sachs around the globe, America, Brazil. There's some real key people from Goldman Sachs, again, going through a syllabus from how to help get your business from being a high growth business to get to float stage. Basically, unicorn status is what it's for. And then the second day, I spent the morning at the London Stock Exchange, which is really exciting. Got to be there for the market opening, and I've got a recording of it actually, so I'll send it to you guys because that was fun, and it just gives you that inspiration that one day I'm going to be there. I also had a talk then from the head of the AIM market of how to go to float and why choose the London Stock Exchange over the other Europeans or American ones, either on the AIM or the main market. But yeah, the syllabus we went through just very quickly is which was useful. We talked about innovation. We talked about the macro trends. We talked about business health. We talked about team. We talked about AI, and we had a speaker from an investment firm. So it's not just Goldman Sachs. They actually bring in past entrepreneurs who floated. They brought in venture capital firms, private equity firms. Lakestar, the chief technology officer of Lakestar, is the guy who gave us the talk on AI and talked about what they're seeing. And they're a huge VC firm investing in hundreds of businesses in the tech space. So he was very experienced in tech, deep tech, AI, and all of that. Sustainability, deal making. We had a talk from the founding employee of Innocent Smoothies, who went on to found Ball Foods. So that was interesting. Lots of networking. There's 63 businesses, combined turnover of £1 billion a year, all employing 5,000 people. So that I felt like a small fish in that room, which is exactly what you want to feel like. When you're in events. If you feel like you're the biggest fish in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need to get into other rooms where there's people doing much bigger things than you, and you can learn from them. So yeah, that's as my voice, has it cut out?
I can still hear your
No,
voice, but not your video.
Yeah, you've frozen, man.
Has my screen frozen? That's a shame.
I can still hear you though, mate.
Oh,
Yeah,
right. Oh,
weird.
I think.
It's because your phone's ringing. Yeah, it's gone through to you.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry, you might have to stitch that together. I don't know why. I don't know why it's frozen. Can I stop?
Did you say that you had a lesson with the chief technical officer at a business this week?
Yeah. So sorry, Chief Technology. Yeah. What is it? What's it called? CTO. What's that stand for?
Stands for it'll fix your screen for you, mate.
CTO of Lakestar. Yeah.
It's mugged on his face so well.
He's
And he's
gone.
gone.
Still there?
Well, there you go. You can't tell us about that anymore, can you?
Yeah.
Should
Fair
we-
play to him though. He's super ambitious, isn't he?
Yeah, mate. He's just constantly trying to absorb knowledge, and for anyone out there listening, I mean, that's the relentlessness you need. You need to continuously go, right, I've beaten the circle that I'm in. I'm now the top dog. Now I need to get to a new circle where I can go and strive again and be inspired by bigger fish around you. So, what a geezer! Here he is.
Can you hear me?
We
He's
can hear you
back.
now, mate. You're back.
Right. I don't know what happened there. Where did I finish off? And you guys can cut it together.
We heard everything, mate, and it should be your video's fine as well. So it should be
Good.
sound.
Anyway, that's what the Unicorn School is. So basically, and then we spent the rest of the time talking about financing and the financing options, and basically to get a company from high growth to float is loads of different financing tools that you need to be aware of to help you get there. But I'm just going to leave with two very quick things. One is one of the good things they said. I wrote it down as a quote: is you need to, if you've got big aspirations, you need to start now, and you need to always ask yourself and that question: what would your business look like if you expanded globally? Forget that you deal with property in the south, the north, the east, whatever. If you wanted to do it globally, what does your business need to look like? This is assuming you want to grow to a national or global, international stage. But if you think about what it needs to look like, if you were the MD and it had to be globally, and what you need to have in place, then you should start that process really early on, which is obviously what we've tried to do as well. And the other thing that I will say is what I learned is you have to be, in this day and age, especially with the emergence of AI, the businesses that are going to succeed are the businesses that are going to basically be like guerrilla warfare, if that makes sense. It's like guerrilla. We're kind of in a bit of emerging no man's land territory where AI is here, and the rules are being rewritten, and the best way to win is to adopt that guerrilla style mindset of workarounds. So one is like the piggyback workaround, which I talked about the a diarrhea pill with Coca-Cola, the loophole workaround, which is basically looking at rules as they are and how can they be rewritten, or what are they not saying that you could leverage from and utilize from. The next best, which is going to be one of the most common emerging workaround trend for the future businesses or even current businesses, which basically is using AI to repurpose or recombine existing available resources into a unique tool that actually helps and saves time. That's where a lot of businesses are going to be exploding from, that workaround. And the last one is the roundabout, which is disturbing current trends, which we've already been talking about on here. So there's current old trends or old establishments that AI and new technology is going to disturb quite aggressively, and that's also going to be on there. But lots of stuff. But ultimately, if you're interested in learning, I would recommend you try to get on to the Goldman Sachs 10K business school, and then alumni, and then eventually the Unicorn School, because you're around other businesses all trying to do the same thing in different fields. So why not?
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that's great takeaway question. That, and for anyone listening out there as well, what is your if you've got scale ambitions to go big, what does your business look like globally? I think that's a great question. I'm going to think about that this week. That's an interesting question, guys. Anything left to round off this pod? Anything to say to the viewers?
Sorry. I honestly apologize, but I forgot a key piece of advice. This is from Alison Mass. She's been at Goldman Sachs for 43 years, worked on Wall Street, and this is her tips from her own words for what you need to succeed as a leader. Number one, you have to have high self-awareness. Number two, you got to know where you're going. It's vital, which you've already touched today. Number 3, you have to remain focused on the end goal. Number 4, don't get distracted. Number 5, take risks. You have to take risks, and you've mentioned that as well, Jag. You have to just make decisions, take risks. Number 6, you have to build key relationships. It's a people's business. The more you can, don't burn bridges and leverage off relationships, the further you'll go. Number 7, actually, the people you're working with, emotional intelligence. You have to build emotional intelligence and that genuineness and that careness and getting the best out of them. And then number 8 is you have to stay close to your clients. The more you can, whoever you're working with, if you can stay close to them, you get referral, and it'll compound and compound and compound. And the key thing there, right, is actually, as I say all them, you already probably know most of them. And that's the key thing. There's no real secret other than doing these key points and keeping at it and reinvesting and compounding and just learning every day.
Does that count as your quote for this episode as well?
It does. It does.
Oh, yeah. Any
Amazing.
more? It's everyone think it's the Dorian show.
He's spoiling us, mate. Spoiling us.
Today it has been, yeah.
It's been another great podcast, boys. Another few deep dives and nuggets there. Hopefully useful for you viewers at home. And if you don't know already, we release these episodes every Thursday at 5:30 a.m. on Spotify and YouTube. And you can find all of our individual social medias in the video description on both those channels, and go to the at Ground Up Pod on Instagram or other socials to drop us a follow. Keep engaged, and any comments that you leave for us or questions to answer in the next episodes, we will do, or suggestions for topics, you are more than welcome. So please do let us know. Other than that, nice one, boys. Hope you have a good weekend, and we'll see you in the next episode. Sweet.
Hasta la vista.
Baby.
See you later.
Cool. No, fuck off, you fucking slag.
Still recording.
That's
Vin?
got to go in.
Make sure that makes
It's for the bloopers. You fucking slag.
start.
Thanks for dropping the female bomb on us, boys.
Oh yeah, that was a can of worms right there.
Let's talk about female bloody movement, shall we?
But I'll end the recording before we...
They're all
Ground up sound.